to the Bill Moran Show on WVLP LP 103.1 FM and streaming live at WVLP.org or on your TuneIn app. We are broadcasting live from the historic 1 Center Street building in beautiful Valparaiso, Indiana. The Bill Moran Show is underwritten by Recovery Works of Maryville, Indiana. And now, here is your host, Bill Moran.
Welcome to the Bill Moran Show on WVLP 103.1 FM. Our show discusses people, news, and events in the Chicago area. We also hold timely panel discussions on such topics as substance abuse, domestic violence, and sexual aggression, as well as veterans affairs. We have brought together elected officials and citizens to discuss issues that are impacting our community. Our purpose is to discuss solutions that would support our vibrant community in its communal and economic growth. Welcome today, and I'll give you a little overview of WVLP if you are a first-time listener. WVLP is a community-based station that went in operation in the early 2000s. We are a volunteer-based station with show hosts that are passionate about their music or topics on their respective shows. You will find a wide range of music from many genres, as well as talk shows that cover a wide range of topics. We are independent, which gives us freedom to bring you content that you will not hear anywhere else. Because we are independent, we rely on contributions from our community and support from our underwriters. If you wish to support WVLP, go to wvlp.org/support and make a contribution anywhere from $5 on up to $100, or you can schedule a monthly contribution. By doing so, you will support programs like the one you are hearing now, to talk, and also such shows as The Morning Black, which is on Saturday, every morning, or Saturday morning, and discusses diversity and acceptance in our community. If music is your passion, you will find shows such as Left of Center, Living It Up, Valpo Blues, Old School Funk, or Mostly Metal, our founder's favorite genre and show. So please consider contributing today. Just go to wvlp.org/support. Well, we would like to welcome you to the Bill Moran Show, and today we have as our guest Mike Brickner, who is the new Executive Director for Public Safety in Porter County, and then Lance Bella, who is the Director of Emergency Management. Welcome, folks, and this is your, Lance has been on before, but Mike, is this your first time on WVLP?
It's my first time on your show.
Oh, okay.
So thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate it coming. So let's start out with, because your position, Mike, is a new position in Porter County. It was just created. So if you don't mind, why don't you tell us a bit about the position, what you're responsible for, what departments are that report to you?
No problem at all, Bill. You're correct. This is a new position that was created by the Porter County Commissioners. Actually, I retired as Chief of Police from the Valparaiso Police Department last year, and while I was still employed during the year of last year, I had heard this position was being explored and considered by Porter County government. You know, as the chief in Valparaiso, I was familiar with some of the challenges that were facing the emergency 911 and the EMA organizations within the county. Didn't know all the details, but I knew there were some challenges there. And I was also aware that the commissioners were looking to advance those organizations and take them to the next level. So this position was created, and I put in for it. It intrigued me. Went through an assessment center, and the process. They did a nationwide search, and I was offered the position. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity. But what it really entails, and what I think that the county government leaders are looking for, is leadership. Leadership in both of those organizations, to bring the E911 and the emergency management services to being one of the elite organizations in the state of Indiana, being one of the both of them the model organizations in the state. And part of the discussion I had during my early stages with this job was, speaking with my bosses to provide me with the opportunity to bring in people that I knew could accomplish those goals. And one of those people that I had, in mind right from the beginning was Lance, to oversee the EMA. And I feel very fortunate that Lance became a part of this team. And just about 3 months ago, I hired Rob Lanchwert, who is a director for the E911 side as a director. So, I've known Rob, who is retired from South Bend Police Department for almost 14 years. And with Lance and Rob, we have probably one of the most skilled teams in this, both 911 and EMA, I believe, in the state. I mean, between the three of us, we have close to 85 years of public safety experience, either law enforcement, fire, hazmat. Lance brings a lot of those skills to the table. So we have the experience as public safety professionals, a lot of years, and I think it's an exciting time for Porter County.
Definitely, and you bring from the Valpo Police Department, your people are familiar with you in the area. So can you describe particularly let's go stop off at the 911, because that's the most visible of your departments. Can you describe some of the changes that are taking place? Because I know both technology-wise and personnel-wise, you just mentioned it has a new director. So can you kind of step us through some of the changes that they may be taking place?
I'd be happy to, and that's, it's a complicated answer to that, but I'm going to do the best I can. When we talk about changes in the 911 center, and I'll let Lance talk about the EMA side, but we're not just changing, updating equipment and updating policies, but we're looking to change a culture at that organization, and it takes more time, more commitment, and it takes the right people to be able to do that. And what I mean by a culture, the 911 center, with some of the changes, is making sure that we just 6 additional dispatchers, making sure we're hiring the right people, making sure we have a model recruiting and hiring program and training program in place, which the center did not have. So we've implemented that. One example that what I learned when I took over is that it was taking way too long to hire a dispatcher and then have them trained and released to be on their own. And we're talking almost a year. Our goal right now is we have revamped our entire hiring training process to where our goal is to have them ready within 4 to 6 months. So we're attacking our staffing and our training issues. Our technology, doing a complete internal control, taking a look at our technology. A lot of the technology that I inherited that is vital to 911 safety was considered end of life. There was not a replacement program. There was not a very working budget to have, and putting all these pieces together to make sure that the center is not only stabilized, but then starts to be one of the most advanced in the state. So we're working on improving our technology. We're looking at empowering our employees. We have tiers of levels of supervisory levels, looking to empower our people to actually lead within the center, be accountable, and also provide a better service to our public safety partners. We provide service to 28 different agencies within Porter County. Last year we had 205,000 calls go through our center. We provide a very valuable service, and we want to make sure that our police, fire, EMS partners, that those people out there that are doing those jobs, I come from that side of the fence on police side, that they're safe, they're getting all the information that they need. When we get it, they're getting it. They're getting it in a timely manner, that it isn't taking minutes to dispatch calls that need to be dispatched in seconds, and to make sure they have the right resources to be able to do their jobs. If there's any type of a structure fire, we want to make sure that our fire departments are being provided with the right resources so they can do their jobs. But the main priority is to keep them safe. And we're doing things, like I just mentioned, to improve the safety of our public safety partners within the county.
One thing I will say, it's kind of interesting to our listeners as well as me, is that now we have someone that was on the other side of the fence directing the 9/11 service. You started out in a patrol car at one time or another, and you had to rely on those folks. But now with the consolidation, it's even more so that hinges a lot of lives in Porter County. So we appreciate all the efforts that you're doing to make that happen, and I think that's very appropriate. Have someone that used to be in the car having to rely on that dispatcher giving them accurate information and so on. What does the staffing look like? How many dispatchers do we have in the 911 center?
Well, right now we're understaffed. It was understaffed when I came in, and we're working to get our staffing levels at least up to what we're budgeted for. We should have 42 dispatchers in that room, and we're in the process of, we just gave a condition of hire to 6. They're going to begin their training here shortly, and then we're going to be hiring an additional 5 after that. So we are looking to hire some people, which I think is very key. I mentioned earlier about changing a culture. Well, it starts with hiring the right people. One of the philosophies and Lance would agree as well. One of the key things, if you're in a position of leadership, promoting the right people to leadership positions within the organization and hiring the right people to be a part of your organization are probably, in my opinion, the most two vital key issues. And we're not just hiring people to fill an opening. We're hiring people that are going to make us better and to make that center better. So we're getting ready to begin training on these new hirees. But we work a 12-hour shift. The dispatchers work a 12-hour shift in the radio room. It provides us with better coverage without having to increase our staffing. I mean, that's one of the challenges with consolidation, is it's supposed to be a better system. And for the last 17 years in Porter County, when consolidation first occurred, I'll share this, is that our county and, past directors or people at the 911 center have not embraced the consolidation model. Consolidation means unified. It means one. It means working together. It does not mean just moving dispatchers from one agency into one building. You have to look at your staffing levels. You have to look at your call volume. I mean, there are all these metrics that have to be evaluated that we're just now beginning to do. And that's one thing that we're looking to improve: the efficiency, the safety, working within a manageable budget, because a lot of it comes down to dollars. Public safety is something that the commissioners are committed, the county commissioners are committed to make sure that public safety is taken care of within our county. Very supportive of the direction that we're going. So again, I think it's a very good time, some exciting things happening, and it's going to be good for our citizens as well as our police, fire, EMS partners.
Right. That's one thing I've got to hand it to you folks that are in charge of emergency response and so on, is that there's a lot of unknown variables in Porter County. One of the things that a few people appreciate is they forget about Portage, all of the industrial complex we have in Portage, the Meriplex, and well, you folks are responsible for those as well as the residential units, and even in Valparaiso, you have some fairly large commercial complexes in Valparaiso as well that you have to be responsible for. So, and coming from spending 21 years at Valpo schools, I can appreciate that, because things change, but your budget doesn't. So you have to learn how to balance those things until the next budget cycle comes along. And of course, you're always the bad guy when you have to come to the people who actually control the budget and say, well, we need some more money for this. But one thing I'll point to is, we're now faced with and Sheriff Reynolds constantly brings up every time he's behind that microphone the number one problem in Porter County, which is substance abuse, which again you guys play a big role into that, and then it's the timely response and making sure that people are trained and how to talk to people over the phone and so on. So that is huge, and I don't envy your positions at all. This is a growing community economically and population-wise. So getting on to some of the other departments, and Lance will talk about his department, but you have one other department that you're responsible for?
Well, I oversee the 911 center and have a 911 director who works there handling the day-to-day operations, Rob, and the EMA, which Lance is the director at the EMA side as well. And to talk a little about the EMA side, and I know Lance will, the job that he's done over there, it's been phenomenal. I remember my first day walking in, because there was no transition. When I took over this position, the EMA director was gone, the past one. The 911 director was gone. So it was like starting from scratch. And I will say, walking into the old the current EMA building was in total disarray, disorganization, such a vital part of what we need in this county. I was really surprised to see how just mismanaged that organization was, and it was going to be a monumental task for whoever came in as the actual director to handle the day-to-day things. So I knew that I had to find the right person for that. And Lance has come in, and the building looks totally different. That building has been there for several years. It isn't a brand new building by any means, but just the organization within that facility. There are millions of dollars worth of equipment that are housed in that building. That I will share. I won't share exactly what all that stuff does, but just a simple thing as securing the. And when I always say that your best leaders are people that have to manage volunteers. If you're in charge of somebody and you can, they're getting paid a paycheck, you have a little bit of leverage, but managing volunteers is a challenge. And Lance has come in, and that's what he primarily deals with, are people that volunteer their time to work and spend time with the EMA and are available during emergencies. And these people are incredible. But he has come in and really taken the leadership role and turned that, in a short amount of time, turn that place around. And I'll let him explain what exactly EMA does, because a lot of people don't really know. But there are so many resources that are available, within our county. And one of the things I know that we're doing together, and Lance has taken a lead, is getting out there and letting people know exactly what resources are available.
That's what we can hope to help you maybe again on the show, is bring you on as changes take place and invite you to discuss them. So I think we're going to go ahead and start with you again, or turn it over to you, Lance, and discuss a bit about what you do. Why don't you start off by telling people your background, first of all, and then and I know, but we sometimes have new. I know it's hard to believe that the Bill Moran Show has new listeners. I know that's what you're thinking.
New all the time.
You know what? I forgot your pen. I'm sorry. You complained about the other show host that gave you a gift.
Yeah, I'm going to let you work on that, though.
I'll give you.
Don't set that down. I may grab it.
It's not personalized, though, but I hope it's okay.
It'll be fun.
All right, so once you explain to folks your background and then move into your role in the EMA.
Sure. My background, I've been in public safety in one form or another for over 30 years. The bulk of my career prior to coming to EMA was with U.S. Steel Emergency Services. I started there as a patrol officer. It was very unique that our patrol division, we were patrol officers, firefighters, EMTs, and then we were also our own hazmat team. So we were a multifaceted group. It allowed us to have a lot of different experiences and be able to address a lot of different situations. I worked my way up through emergency services and safety, eventually became the chief of emergency services for U.S. Steel's 3 Indiana facilities, And then my last 2 years with U.S. Steel, I was promoted to the corporate group where I was a master chief of approximately half of North America, which encompassed about 600 emergency services personnel. That's kind of the bulk of my experience with emergency management. And then, as Mike indicated, he was trying to put together a team, and one day called me and said, we're trying to bring emergency management and public safety in Porter County to the next level, and I'm trying to put a team together, and I want you to be part of that. So I was very excited, number one, to be able to have an opportunity to help Porter County, but then in addition, being able to work for and with somebody of the caliber of Mike Brickner was just an honor that he would even ask me. So that was kind of the start of that. And then we focused, as Mike said, we started to try to see what we can improve on, and kind of started with the organization of the assets in the building. But I think it became very important. As Mike said, a lot of people don't know what EMA does. And so I thought it was important within our group that we understood what was our mission, what is our function, and got together as a group and collaboratively came up with our mission statement, which is to assist Porter County in preparing for, responding to, and recovering from hazardous incidents and disasters. So that is what our focus and what we do. How do we do that now? There's three key functions that we perform in order to accomplish that towards our mission. So one would be planning. The planning phase would be trying to plan for different types of emergencies and disaster situations. How would we move assets around? How would we control traffic flow? How could we prepare people ahead of time so that if something does happen, that they can respond to and then ultimately recover from that emergency situation or a disaster? So that's the first phase. Second phase is service and support. So we have a staff of 4 full-time individuals. There's myself, there's Deputy Director John Pizowitz, we have a hazardous materials team commander, Greg Eckhart, and then an administrative assistant who work full-time. And then in addition to that, we have approximately 25 people who are volunteers that work for us and come in and donate their time in order to help the citizens of Porter County. So the service and support group, collaboratively, we try to assist emergency services with resources as they need. If they're on a scene and they need additional resources or additional support, we can help provide that for them.
Lance, let's stop here for a break real quick, and we'll just do a short and keep that note, and we'll return back to you in just a minute.
You are listening to The Bill Moran Show on WVLP LP 103.1 FM and streaming live at WVLP.org or on your TuneIn app. We are broadcasting live from the historic 1 Center Street building in beautiful Valparaiso, Indiana. The Bill Moran Show is underwritten by Recovery Works of Maryville, Indiana. If you or a loved one are struggling with a drug or alcohol problem, please call us at 866-535-4673. Now, back to your host, Bill Moran.
Okay, welcome back. And by the way, Kelly is not here with us. I know a lot of you tune in just for her region rants and raves, so I apologize. She's feeling under the weather this morning, and she'll be here next week, though, we hope, right? So you just, and again, if any of you have any rants or raves that you want to share, go ahead and send them to the Bill Moran Show Facebook page, and we'll be sure to get them on the air. Not that Kelly doesn't have enough information or enough material to work with on her own. But I'll tell you, to drive in a car with that lady, oh my goodness, yeah, she's a different person behind the wheel. And actually, they almost deputized her when Chief Briggs was here. After she told them about the snow on the windshields and all, She almost got deputized right there, and she could probably be a deputy. So, okay, Lance, back to you and where we left off.
Sure. So we were talking about what are the functions of emergency management, or EMA, as we'll call it. One being the planning phase. Another responsibility would be service and support. So as emergency services, could be police, fire, EMS, need additional support or resources, we're the group that they come to when they need those, and they've maybe exceeded the resources they have at hand. And those can include a lot of different things. We have a recovery trailer for responders if we needed it when it was cold out. If they needed to recover from the cold, we could turn it into a warming trailer or a cooling trailer to help them rehabilitate and get them back into the emergency scene if needed. We have a mobile command center that we can set up for them if they need that. Generators, light towers, different assets like that, off-road vehicles that if they need those at their disposal, we can help them in getting those in. And that's one of the phases that our 25 volunteers come in. They would respond. We would put out a page. They would respond to the emergency management building, get the assets that are needed, and we would deliver and set them up for emergency services personnel, and then just be there as a support function if they would need assistance in any way. We're there to help them. So that requires a lot of work ahead of time, so pre-staging, maintaining equipment, and then training on how to use the equipment. And these 25 volunteers donate their time to Porter County, and they're countless hundreds, if not thousands of hours every year in order to just be able to serve the citizens of Porter County and be able to help make it a safer place to live. The third function or component of emergency management is our hazardous materials team, which is commanded by Greg Eckhart. We have 13 members of that team, and their basic function is to respond to hazardous materials spills or issues when we have them, and control and or mitigate those problems. So those team members will respond. We have several pieces of equipment that can be deployed in order to assist in that, and they can respond to what we call level A response, which would be your worst case scenario of responding in what you've seen probably on TV, look like big space suits that they would put on in order to try to stop a leak or some other type of a problem. So those are the kind of the three functions that big functions that we would perform at emergency management. And, going along with that in the mission, we kind of had to set out what do we want to do, and going along with what Mike said, we want to be, at an entirely new level that may be what we've operated in the past. So our initial vision for emergency management is to become the benchmark for emergency management in the state of Indiana. And so what we've done is laid out a strategic plan, which is our specific roadmap of how we're going to get there. And that may take 3 to 5 years, and then our goal is once we would achieve that, we're going to set a higher goal. And just with the goal of always being able to serve the citizens of Porter County and the emergency responders of Porter County in a higher level, and never being satisfied with the status quo and reaching to make them better, which ultimately benefits the citizens of Porter County.
Right. And one thing, I'm just good because it's fresh in everyone's mind, yesterday. Why don't you take us through yesterday, because that was a bit taxing, just on all the resources. I know I live in Lake County now, and boy, they were sandbagging the bridge on Kennedy Avenue because the Little County Met was overflowing. So, and we got and through social media, we got some pictures of cars that were partially submerged. So, once you take us through yesterday, as it's fresh in everyone's mind, how does EMA handle those type of conditions?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because all the departments within or divisions within Porter County government will work as a team. So yesterday was an interesting morning. 5:30 a.m. Got a call and ended up talking to the highway department, the director of our highway department, what was the status of the roads. And because of the water, we had several roads that were closed down, and a few had even been washed out. And so he and his people are out there assessing the roads and trying to put up barricades in order to keep people safe. And we came to the realization that there were several roads that were going to be shut down because of safety reasons. And so what we did as a county, we enacted it, and we went to what's called an advisory level with the state of Indiana. And that means that there are specific hazards that are in place, and we need to make sure that people, one, are aware of that, and then that gets communicated to the Indiana Department of Homeland Security so they're aware of our situation, and then we monitor from there. Do we need to go up in our advisory level or from our advisory level to a watch or warning level? And so we're monitoring that. At the same time, there were county engineers out assessing these roads and trying to assess the damage and what we might need to do in order to rectify those. So there's a lot of assessments that will be going on probably for the next week or so. What is the status of those roadways? Because not only we have to be aware of any safety hazards we have now, but how do we return them back to an operating state? So that was going on at the same time. And then, we at EMA started getting calls. There were some citizens and organizations that may have been being flooded from creeks, rivers, or waterways that were overflowing, and started getting calls for sandbags and some things. So we were able to assist those organizations in giving them sandbags so that they can set those up. And that went on through the day, and just trying to help people in different capacities. And then getting into last night, the Porter Fire Department was trying to assist some residents whose houses were starting to flood, and they requested some sandbags. So we ended up delivering 400 sandbags to them. And to the credit of Porter Fire Department, they had their personnel standing out in the rain filling sandbags in the pouring rain as we delivered the empty sandbags to them so they could fill them and then take them to the residents in order to assist them. So it's a team effort between all of the entities within Porter County. So not just the Porter County government organizations, but the municipalities of emergency services that are all trying to work together to make things safe.
Yeah. Hence the word emergency. I mean, you can't plan for that. I mean, we kind of knew what was happening when we were looking at the trends, the amount of moisture was in the air, and the amount that we were going to get dumped on. And that was a pattern from the previous week. But this time the temperatures were just prime, and I can't remember facing anything like this since 2008. So it's being ready and prepared to take that bull by the horns and work it and trying to keep the citizens safe. So who is the contact point for like the schools? Because with all the school districts, when there's an emergency road situation, that you need to let the schools know right away, hey, this isn't going to be safe for buses to roll out?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what happens is we designate, as an example, yesterday we went to an advisory level. Once that decision is made, we would post that to the state's website for travel advisories, and it would indicate that we were in an advisory mode. But at the same time, we communicate that to Porter County government personnel, and communications go out to the commissioners and several of the other key people in Porter County government, as well as all the school superintendents within Porter County, that these are the existing conditions, these are the roads that we have shut down, and we're going to an advisory or higher level of alert. So that would go out to those people, and then in addition, those get communicated through several means. One would be the Porter County Emergency Management Facebook page that gets posted to that, and the other social media pages within Porter County government. The Porter County Sheriff's Department has an alert app that citizens can sign up for. It goes out on that. And then there's another application that people can sign up for called Smart 911. And if you go into that application, it allows you to register your cell phone so they know who it belongs to, and if you call for help, what is your home address in case they need to find you. But it also allows you to sign up for a lot of different notifications, and you can choose those. Do you want weather alerts? Do you want school closings? What type of alerts do you want? And you can pick from a menu not only to be notified of those, but the method. So do you want to be notified via a text, an email, or some other method? It allows you also to put in information about your home, that if emergency responders were to come there, things that they may need to know. When I signed up for that, I was able to even put in that I have a pet, what type of a pet, so that if we weren't home, emergency responders would know that there's a pet in the home, and that they could, help in that capacity as well. So it's a very, very good alert system. You can sign up for Smart 911 on the Porter County Emergency Management Facebook page, or you can go to smart911.com, and it allows you to sign up for that. And again, you can custom tailor the notifications to what specifications you wish. The Porter County Sheriff's Department app, you can download that on your phone, and or you can go to the Porter County Sheriff's Department website in order to get a link in order to sign up for those alerts as well.
It's got a humorous thing. The sheriff's app, when they first came out with it, the push notification was a siren. When that thing went off, I don't know how many times I pulled over looking for someone to be pulling up, a sheriff's deputy pulling up behind me. But I think they changed that now. But it was like, it sounded realistic too. I can't tell you, I think I pulled over 3 or 4 times when that thing went off. And I'd look over, no sheriff deputy in sight. And I looked at my phone. Oh, yeah, road closed at like Route 6 or something, and I'm like, so. But that's good. Now on the 911 notification, if you're not a Porter County resident, could you, maybe if you work in Porter County, could you sign up for it?
That's a great question. Yes, you can. So even if you just work in Porter County, or you want notifications just relative to Porter County, anybody can sign up. So
that's great. So that's good information to have. So let's go talk a little bit about the hazmat while we're at it. So how many vehicles do you have for the hazmat?
Our hazmat commander has a response vehicle that he has him with him all the time, and he has several pieces of equipment on board. So if it's a little bit of a smaller response, he can address that immediately himself, or as other responders arrive, they can utilize that vehicle to work from. But then we also have a larger hazardous materials response truck that is not only houses some of our larger equipment, but also has a section in the back where they can dress out if they need to. It also houses several types of decon equipment that, if they were to go in and stop a leak or stop some type of a situation, we have to be aware that they're in these suits. You just don't take them off. They could expose themselves to hazardous chemicals, materials, and so they have to be deconned prior to taking those suits off. And so there's equipment and supplies in order to do that on board that truck.
And the sirens. You're responsible for the sirens in the entire county, is that correct?
That's correct. We have the tornado sirens that are stationed throughout the entire county. There's 52 sirens in all, and those get activated by a couple different methods. So the first method would be if the National Weather Service issues a warning. Those sirens automatically, through the computer system, sound, and they can even designate down to the type of the area or specific area that would need to be sounded. So all 52 don't have to go off at the same time. They're zoned. So that's one method of those going off. And then the second method would be if emergency services personnel were to actually cite a tornado, they can report that to the 911 dispatch center, and it can be manually activated by the 911 dispatch personnel in order to set those sirens off. So we have a dual method of being able to achieve an alert from those sirens. And incidentally, because we get asked this a lot, the first Tuesday of every month at 11 a.m., those sirens are tested. They generally sound for about 3 minutes. And so when people hear those going off Tuesday at 11 a.m., the first Tuesday of the month, that is a test. And in the past, we have had citizens where we'd have you call in and say whether your sirens were working or not. We appreciate anybody's help, but we no longer need those phone notifications because They've been upgraded and actually through the efforts of our volunteer organization. Those have all been upgraded, and they're tied into a computer system. And the computer system tells us whether they were functioning properly or not. So it lets us know instantly if there's an issue with one of our sirens, and we know that through the computer system.
So do you ever feel like just pushing the button to turn them on?
No, they tried that, Bill, in Hawaii, and it didn't really work out very well.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to make the news in that way, would
No,
you,
I
Lance?
don't want to be famous in that manner.
They run that guy out of town or island. Getting back to, let's talk about schools, because that's something I know you're involved with highly, and working in conjunction with the sheriff in the safe schools and the what do they call it? The #1 protocol for schools.
Yeah, it's really something that Sheriff Reynolds started, and I support. And what his premise was that if you look throughout the county or different school systems, they reacted or they responded to different emergency situations in different manners. And his philosophy was they should all be done consistently the same. So if emergency personnel respond to any school within the county, they know how they're going to respond and react, as well as our emergency responders. How are we going to address situations like that? When he came up with that, I heard a lot of people say it can't be done, not necessarily within our county, but maybe outside our county. And he got it done, and it was a lot of hard work by a lot of people, not in addition to the sheriff, but this was kind of his thought process, and that's coming together. There's still things that I think we need to work on and sew up, and they haven't stopped that. But for the most part, they have kind of graduated to this one response protocol, both at those schools and from emergency personnel. And I support that. And again, a lot of people said it couldn't be done. And I think we will. And Sheriff is not one that sits back and rests. He's always looking for what's the next best thing we can do. How do we go to a higher level, and how do we look to the next level of being able to respond and make sure that people are safe. And as everybody's seen in the last couple weeks here, you turn on the TV and there's things happening all over the country, and I don't think you can under-prepare or over-prepare. You can under-prepare, but you can't over-prepare, and we need to be able to think about these things ahead of time, be proactive about it, and hopefully we don't have to face some of the things that the rest of the country has faced. But God forbid if we do, we want to make sure that we respond and react correctly.
Right. Because I equate it to, I don't know very few buildings that house, for instance, the high schools. Valpo High School, Portage High School. Valpo High School, I know, used to be 2,200 students, and Portage, I think, is close to 3,000 or something of that nature. And so, it's a lot of bodies to be responsible for.
Sure.
And the fact that if they're not on the same page as emergency responders, that doesn't help. And I'm kind of glad to see that initiative. Being in a position that kind of worked with the safety in the school, we try to make our own determinations and what is the best way, and you just can't do that. We're not trained individuals in safety, emergency response, so it's kind of glad to see them do that. So as we get closer to the end of the hour, I want to talk to, I guess, both of you in what you see your roles are in continuing the upgrading of the equipment. One thing it'd be interesting to know that we're looking at since 911, there's been this move to get all the emergency responders within a area, county, or township on the same frequency. And I don't know technically how that's handled, but the whole concept is to have emergency responders be able to communicate with each other, whether you're a Porter cop or Porter fireman or Valpo cop, Valpo fireman, being able to communicate. Where are we on that? Is that, I know it's a planned upgrade, is that coming soon, or?
Well, that's a good question, Bill, and just to answer that, yes, we are moving forward with that. It's a monumental undertaking, we're going from a VHF to a 700 megahertz countywide system. It was several months ago, again, where Porter County government has invested probably over $11 million in this project. That's just how important it is to our community and to our public safety partners. And you're right, you would think that that we would be able to, police and fire would be able to communicate with each other at this point, but with the current system we have, they haven't been able to do that. So the 700 megahertz upgrade is going to allow officers, police officers, firefighters from different cities, volunteer firefighters that are so valuable to our county, to be able to talk to each other, be able to go to an events channel or a headquarters channel, whatever we end up calling it, and be able to communicate. That isn't a want for our county. It was definitely a need. And it's a big investment financially. It's a big undertaking. We are getting closer. We're looking to have everything ready, hopefully by maybe June of this year. Originally, on an aggressive schedule, we were looking at April, but there are always things in a project of this task or this magnitude. There's going to be a few delays, but I think June is a good prediction, and we're excited about that. It's going to be a big improvement from where we are now, for the entire county.
Right, and it's something, again, as I was saying earlier, that you guys are responsible for a lot. It's just not residential areas. You've got huge, the Ameriplex in Portage. You've got the complex out here next to the Sheriff's Department, the recycling plant and the paper products plant. A huge, and I'm not sure how many people they employ, but you're responsible for all those souls within that building, and where you have to have a multi-municipal response to take control over a fire or something that goes on. So that's it's something in that I think we're all fortunate to have you guys in the seats that you're in to take control of that, make sure we're always at the whatever we can do to keep citizens safe. And this county's got some unique problems. It's with the substance abuse problem, which we're unfortunately leading. I don't want to say we're leading. I thought second pro capita in the state, which is a challenge. And then we're constantly growing, and emergency management is going to be a hinge on all of our growth and making sure even we grow, are we all safe. So is there anything else you want to share? Any new programs, any other things that you may want to let our listeners know?
Well, I think we covered quite a bit. Again, how much I appreciate, it's really opened my eyes coming from, law enforcement to, this position I have now, and on how just important the position of our telecommunicators are and the job that they do. I mean, I said this before. We had some telecommunicators at a county council meeting for a job well done, and I really believe they're the unsung heroes of public safety. One thing that I didn't know, and I'll just throw out there, is that they're not considered public safety employees in a category recognized by the federal government. And we're working to change that, because our telecommunicators who do an outstanding job that really take an incident from beginning to end and are multitasking. The technology in that room is so advanced, and they should be recognized for what they do. But again, I just can't say enough about the team that we've put together. I'm very excited about the future for Porter County Public Safety, again with Lance and Rob at the helm of 911, and on the 911 side, we're looking towards being accredited. There is only 911 center in the state that's accredited right now, and that's something that is a goal that we have. But I mean, we're not looking to just improve it; we're looking to make it the best. And so we got a lot of work to do. We have a good group.
Yeah, we appreciate the efforts and everything that you can do for us. So we're going to do a little bit of a transition here kind of early, because we've got phone calls coming in from various different people, which technically we got to handle. And but I appreciate Mike, it's a pleasure seeing you again, and Lance, we'll be seeing you. And
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Definitely, and if you don't mind, we may invite you to come back on. And this month has been kind of like a Porter County month, and we've had the Chief of Deputies on, and also Jay Berkey, who's a Director of Services on the jail, and so we hope to keep people informed on what's going on in the county. And thank you again. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Appreciate it. And we are going to be transitioning over to Recovery Radio. We do have to take care of a couple of technical things here, so we're going to need a couple more minutes to get ready. So we're going to do our usual exit, then you're going to hear some music until we're ready. So we want you all to have a safe week, and for those of you who are going to stay on and listen to Recovery Radio with Megan Johnson, we invite you back. So till then, have a safe week.
You have been listening to The Bill Moran Show on WVLP LP 103.1 FM and streaming live at WVLP.org or on your TuneIn app. Broadcast live from the historic 1 Center Street building in beautiful Valparaiso, Indiana. The Bill Moran Show is underwritten by Recovery Works of Maryville, Indiana. If you or a loved one are struggling with a drug or alcohol problem, please call us at 866-535-4673. This show will be rebroadcast on Saturday at 4 o'clock p.m. on WVLP. The Bill Moran Show podcast is available on iTunes and YouTube. Have a wonderful week. Bye for now.
Coughs up blood, and I wonder if you are still living. Butterflies, dragon's eyes. If I ran to the bed where you sleep, I know I would drown it. And I'd fall to my knees and I'd bring the sky down above us. I would run to my grave if I knew you weren't waiting for me. There'd be no reason to go on.
You're listening to 103.1 FM, WVLP LP Community Radio in Valparaiso.
Out at the club on a Saturday night, the same face standing me all night. I never have seen such a beautiful sight since this time here last week. I stepped to the bar, but it's a lifetime behind. The same old movie stuck in rewind. Deeper through the deja vu haze in my mind. Lighthouse I see this young woman with her eyes on fire. From her lips they'll sing, so hear me cry. Born of angels, but raised by darker than me. I believe that I say what I
Hey everybody, welcome to WVLP 103.1 FM. You are listening to Recovery Radio. Addiction and substance abuse continue to plague our communities, families, and our nation, but we must have hope. Here on Recovery Radio, you will hear about substance abuse, addiction, recovery, and many other related topics from professionals, community members, organizations, and more. We feel that it is important to continue talking about, educating, and spreading awareness about not only the problems of addiction, but also the solutions that exist. We would love to have your feedback, your ideas, your questions, your comments, your criticisms. So if you'd like to connect with us, please go to our Facebook page at Recovery Connection and leave us a message. We would love to hear from you. So my name is Megan Johnston. I'm your host of Recovery Radio. I'm here with Bill Moran, who is our co-host. You can listen to Recovery Radio every Wednesday from noon to 1 p.m. And our guest today is someone who Bill has kind of connected to Recovery Radio, and I'm really excited to kind of talk with her for the first half of our show, and then we have another person calling in later in the show, so I'm really excited to get this conversation going. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Bill, to kind of introduce Amy for us.
All right, we want to welcome Amy Brinkley back to our show again. For those of you who are familiar with her, she was on our show about a month or so ago. And Amy, are you with us?
I am. Thank you, Bill.
Oh, wow. Okay, this worked.
Hi, Amy.
Hi, Amy. How you doing today?
Nice to meet you. I'm good. Just rainy and dreary here in Indianapolis.
Yes, it's very dreary and rainy here as well. So.
Oh, boy. In fact, we just had some folks on from emergency management talking about all the raininess and dreariness that we've been experiencing up here. We've had some road closures and so on. So, Amy, well, first of all, welcome to our show, the Recovery Radio. You and I have been talking about this show for a while, and if you will, why don't you, for those who, and this is kind of different show from the Bill Moran show, why don't you give us some background about yourself for those of you, our listeners who may not be familiar with you.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. And Megan, it's definitely nice to meet you. So, first and foremost, I always identify as a person in long-term recovery. So I've been in recovery myself for 8 years now. And
congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. So it's by the grace of God. It's nothing I did on my own, I can tell you that much.
Sure.
But I relate to the field of addiction both through lived experience as well as professional experience. And so my history, and I'll just go through it quickly, I've lost 2 brothers to suicide, and my mother passed away to an accidental drug overdose. And so, after my brother's suicide in 2012, I had enough, and I was already in recovery for 3 years, and I'm just like, okay, we have to do better.
Yeah.
Like, we just have to do better. And my brother, he had barriers to access to services, but he's not the only one.
Sure.
I mean, you don't have to be around long to figure out that we have barriers. And so I just started doing a lot of volunteering. I just started to educate myself on this field of mental health and addictions. And I started volunteering for my local NAMI. I started going to education courses. I started attending support groups. And then I started teaching the classes. And then I'm facilitating support groups. Did a lot of work through the just outreach and just sharing my story, my personal story within the prison systems, and sharing my brother's story, and just trying to educate our correctional staff that people with mental illness, it is an illness, number one, and number two, humanizing them. So this could be your brother, sister, father, mother. Absolutely. You know, granted, you're there to, you know, keep control, but also recognize that these are human beings and they're not going to be here for the rest of their lives.
Absolutely.
Well, although some might, but the point is that we are all humans. So I did that for a couple of years, and you know, by the grace of God, I've just, you know, stayed plugged into my recovery community and just got plugged into NAMI, and now I work for the Indiana Division of Mental Health and Addictions and help direct policies and legislation around mental health and addictions through my own lived experience and my professional experience in the past 5 to 8 years. So that's kind of brings you guys up to speed.
Yeah, that is amazing. And what really kind of sticks out to me the most is you said you were 3 years into your recovery and all of those terrible things happened to you. And I think for a lot of people who struggle with addiction, that might be a perfect kind of storm for someone to relapse and kind of go back to old thought patterns and old ways of living, but you chose not to.
Right.
Can you kind of talk about that in that moment and during that time, what your kind of thought pattern was and why you decided to, instead of disengage, engage in community and engage in that kind of way of living?
Yeah, so that was actually, I share my story a lot, and that was actually a turning point for me in my recovery. So up until that moment, I had been, you know, attending 12-step fellowships and, you know, engaging with a personal mentor and kind of going through the motions, if you will, as a person in recovery, but I hadn't really long-term bought into this commitment that this is the person I'm going to be for the rest of my life. I'm going to stay sober for the rest of my life. I'm 100% sold on this. I had just kind of been doing what they said, and it had kept me sober up until that time. And then when my brother died, something within me clicked, and I realized that all of this stuff that I had been learning and that I had been hearing and that I had been quote-unquote practicing, all of a sudden it kicked in. Okay. And so when life hits, I tend to go on autopilot.
Sure.
And so in the past, my autopilot was to numb, to turn to drugs and alcohol and anything to get outside of my feelings, and how can I make this go away as quickly as possible. But in the 3 years previously, I had been practicing all these new coping skills and all these new ways of responding to situations and practicing. And then when I needed it to, it kicked in, and I just you know, this is it. You know, I don't want to go back. And so, you know,
that is
I just
amazing.
continue to move forward.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that's something that we can all kind of learn from, is to see these hard things that happen to us as opportunities instead of kind of fallbacks or shortcomings. So I really respect that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Amy, also one thing that would be of interest is that you've actually wrote a few books. Is that correct?
Yes, I have. So my first book, I've always wanted to be a writer since I was a kid, and that dream kind of went to the wayside, you know, as I started my own family and started my own career prior to my addiction. And then I fell into an addiction. But when I was coming out, I had just gotten through my first round of the 12 steps, and I just wanted to tell my story. I just wanted to just tell my story, and honestly, I kind of hope to just tell it and be done with it so I could kind of get on with my life kind of deal, and it hasn't quite worked out that way. So I wrote a book, and I just talk about my my recovery and my, you know, basically my fall from grace, you know, because I had a good life, you know, I had a very good job, I had a career, I had a family, and, you know, through a simple pain pill prescription from a doctor, completely legitimate and legal as far as I was concerned, you know, my whole life fell apart through this addiction. And so I just wanted to tell my story. So that's kind of my first book. And then my second book kind of, it's more of a anthology. So it's a series of other people on the same walk as me. And it's just our faith stories, just a little blurb. And then the third book is just the sequel, because everybody's asked me they want to know how I got from there to here. So, because it's a pretty huge leap. So it wasn't anything I did, it was God. But So I did. I wrote another book, and that book, I took 90 days off. I worked in Northwest Indiana by you guys, actually, for about 4 years. And at the tail end, I just said, okay, I'm going to take 90 days off and write a book. And then I started seeking outside employment after I got my book done, and that's when I got the job here in Indianapolis. So
that's amazing. Yeah. What are the titles of your books?
The title of the first book is A Glimpse of Blind Faith, and it's on Amazon, and I do a lot of prison ministry with that book, so 100% of the profits from that book have gone back into the prisons. So I just go in and share my story with the girls in the same therapeutic programs or institutions that I was in, and I just give them all a free book. So I've had a lot of people donate, and I've had a lot of people just buy extra books for me to give away, and then every book sold buys a book for a girl on the inside. So 100% of the profits from that have gone back into the prison, into another girl's hands, so that they just know, like, this doesn't have to be the end of the road for you.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to get out of here. You can stay sober. Recovery is possible. And so that's A Glimpse of Blind Faith. And then the second book was, I got so wrapped up in that book, I'm drawing a blank. We'll come back to that one. So then
that's good. That's good.
The sequel to the first book is going to be A Glimpse of Blind Faith in Strength. Because in recovery, we're taught to share our experience, strength, and hope. So the first book was focused primarily on my experience, what led me into addiction and how I got out of it. Gotcha. And so now I've kind of turned a corner in the second book, so it's kind of strength. And then maybe sometime in the future, I'm kind of got my hands full with 4 teenagers and life right now, but at some point I'll write a book on hope.
That is life. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I been raising teenagers for, and I could tell you it's not easy. So
Gosh, it's not easy.
No, it is not.
4 in the same house.
Lord,
help me.
Yeah, beautiful kids though. We're Facebook friends, and you got some great kids there.
Thank you.
One thing that I guess we want to mention briefly why we're having you on the show today, and actually going to be joined by someone else a little bit later, is the recovery radio, and this is a concept that is been kicked around a bit, and it kind of existed here, and Megan's hosted it for how long?
Well, since it's been recovery radio, it's only been a couple of months. We were All Rise before, but so that's been a total about 8 or 9 months, I would say.
Right, and this is kind of a work in progress, wouldn't you say?
Is,
and
yes.
Megan and I have came together, and we worked through it, and we've started hosting each other's show. But one of the things that we wanted to have you on the show, Amy, is we're going to have actually it's kind of maybe sounds strange for some, but to me it doesn't. Is have a brainstorming session on what can we do with recovery radio and what outreaches can we do, because Megan is the director of Recovery Connection. And you want to share a bit about that, Megan?
Absolutely. So Recovery Connection, we basically exist to provide recovery support services. And these are the services that a person might need after treatment or after they get out of jail, or even, in their long-term recovery. These services would be helpful to them. We offer services such as support groups, support meetings. We have peer mentoring, so we train our volunteers to become mentors to people in recovery, to kind of walk with them through that journey and through that process. We offer life skills training for people in recovery, so a person just getting out of jail needing to find a job, we can help them with interviewing skills or just job etiquette in general, other life skills training like financial, cooking, things like that. And then we offer other variety of services. We can help people kind of develop their own personal recovery plan, so it really is the after part. We don't do any type of treatment or counseling, but we exist to provide the support that a person needs in their long-term recovery.
And that's the important. I mean, there's a huge gap there. So
yes,
that's important.
Yeah, we completely
in our
agree.
Culture, we've kind of shifted from this recovery focused, treatment. Our treatment model has shifted to an acute model of intervention.
Absolutely.
And there's very rarely a recovery oriented focus. So there's this huge gap almost between our acute models of intervention and our recovery.
Yes, absolutely.
There's this whole space in between where people need support.
Yes.
Yes. We have someone who goes into a treatment center for an overdose or just to detox, and then we say, okay,
you're good to go.
Sign up, sign up for IOP,
right?
And we'll see you in 2 weeks, and go to a meeting.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
But what about all of the other areas of this person's life that were affected by their using?
Yes.
You have the stigma and shame that's associated with an addiction. They have to rebuild relationships.
Absolutely.
What about a job? What if they had housing problems? There's all of these other levels of need that are completely not looked at.
Yeah. I mean, we say treatment, a lot of treatment providers, like you're saying, it's an acute model. They're, maybe a month, 2 months, maybe 3 months. And I just think that that's not enough time to kind of address all of those issues that you listed and even more. And I even think that farther down the road, some of these issues might not pop up for 1 or 2 years after a person is sober. So it is so important. I completely agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, one thing, Megan, I've got to, first of all, I feel I've got to apologize to someone that's been in a room that I have not introduced to. And I do want to introduce, and we'll get back with you here, Tony, and you pronounce your last name? Ramon. Tony is going to be kind of helping out with the show here periodically, and he has agreed to actually participate in another project we have going on called The Walk. Mm-hmm. So, and we'll get to that shortly. But and I apologize. It's just been every time I've been doing this since last March. And there's not one day that I don't walk into the studio and I feel nervous. And I'm trying to get the script ready, and especially today because I had to hook up this phone to the board, and I'm like, oh, okay. So Tony, welcome, and we'll be talking to you about your story here soon. But getting back to the discussion about what happens, during recovery and post-recovery. Mm-hmm. Megan and you, I talked about this before on the show, that it's key to keep these people, whether it's a social environment, keep that active so that they feel like they've got a connection, and hence Recovery Connection.
Yes.
And I view Recovery Connection as a entity that provides all those things, whether it's a mentor, someone to go out coffee with, someone to go to a movie with, or to partake in a group or a specific activity. And Recovery Connection also partners with different facilities in area, like Frontline, who has an awesome music program. And but that is another way to tie in. They have a music and art program, and so those are things to positively keep them active and keep them towards a positive direction. So, and that's why I guess we began discussing what we're going to do with this radio show, and it's, I like it. With me, I'm a rookie, and I'm just learning every day. I'm learning about the community, and but that, Amy, we're so thankful to have you on, because between you, Joshua, Megan, myself, and Tony, probably we can come up with kind of a sketch of what we should be doing.
Yeah.
And so. Amy, one other thing I was going to ask you, besides authoring, you're an advocate, obviously, and I know a lot of Facebook friends. I'm still amazed this day. People contact me and say, "Oh, you're going to have Amy on your show?" It's just,
wow.
You've got a big fan club up here. I guess it's from your work when you were up here. But and can you talk to us about that? Because you did say you actually go into jails and you tell people your story, and you're also acting as an advocate downstate as well, making sure that the recovery is an issue that's constantly brought forward. Can you tell us a little bit more about the advocacy of that part of what you're doing? I mean, not specifically with the state, but you personally.
Yeah, so after my brother died, my life's motto, mission, my belief that I kind of picked up through that grieving process was that, like I already said, we can do better, number one. Number two, we have to advocate for those who cannot advocate for themselves. I feel like we're missing the mark. And I believe that God allowed me to fall into an addiction so that I could see like the helplessness and the hopelessness of it, and then allowed me to come out so I could help show others the way out. And so I remember, like, when I meet someone that's newly in recovery, I remember, like, yeah, that's hard. And you don't think that there's any way out, and the obsession is real, and you really believe that you cannot stay sober. But I'm here to tell you, you can.
Yes.
And, you know, when you're in there, when you're in that obsession of an addiction, you know, I didn't see any way out. And so they would say, go to a meeting, but why? They're not going to help me. Or go to the hospital and detox. For what? Because in 3 days, the obsession is going to be back. But it's that mutual aid or that peer support that comes into play that's so crucial. We have to advocate for those people who cannot advocate for themselves. My brother's a prime example. My brother spent probably the last 10 years of his life incarcerated. He was duly diagnosed. We grew up, he had ADHD, and then he went to prison, was put in complete and total isolation. His mental illness grew to what I found after he died was paranoid schizophrenia. He had multiple suicide attempts before he was released, mind you, before he was released. And they would have to move him prison to prison for his own well-being because he had so many suicide attempts. And then he was released, and within 5 days, he completed a suicide. We have to do better.
Wow.
Like, these people are coming out of jail, and they're either going right back in, or they're going right back into the mess that they left in the first time. So we have to get better at advocating for those people. And so when I was in Northwest Indiana, I did a lot of work with we were trying to build up the NAMI. Gary, Indiana chapter. And there are so many resources, and people are not connected to them, or they don't know about them. Or when you're working with someone one-on-one, what you find out is they just don't know where they are, and they don't know how to get plugged in. And so there's this whole warm handoff that has to take place. You know, I had one girl reach out to me, and I had never met her before. We became Facebook friends. She sent me a Facebook friend request. We were friends for almost a year, and all of a sudden I get a message from her that she needs to meet now. She's not feeling well. She's scared she's going to hurt herself. I meet with the girl, and I come to find out she's got her whole suicide plan mapped out. She's got her bank account cleared out. She's got her house keys in her hand. She's got the note written, and she was ready to end her life that day.
Wow.
And by the grace of God, I had a cancellation, and she messaged me, and everything just worked out, and my spirit was saying, just go and talk to her. Like, I didn't even know where the conversation was going to go. And I got her into treatment that day. And those are the kind of things, you know, she's doing well today. She's alive, she's well, she's thriving. You know, I don't follow her super closely, but she knows I'm here if she needs me.
That's
so
amazing.
those are the kind of things, you know, we need to do better as a whole. I did some work at Edgewater Behavioral Health Center. I worked a lot with the inner city kids there in Gary, East Chicago, Hobart, Hebron. I kind of made the rounds, and our kids are suffering, and there's so much trauma that's involved in this. And the recovery side of me, the recovery world, says we can only keep what we have by giving it away. So if you're well, it's because somebody invested in you.
Yes.
So therefore, take what you have and invest it in someone else.
Absolutely. So kind of leading out of that, I mean, why is it so important to have this recovery community in place? Why is it important to have this support and these social activities and these people who are kind of there to help and there to give? Why is that so important?
Well, William White, who is a person in long-term recovery, he's also a doctor, and he kind of created this whole recovery-oriented systems of care model of intervention, and you can look at that at a local level, at a system level, at an agency level. You can look at it on many levels. But he refers to recovery resources as recovery capital. So when someone is in an addiction, and they've been in an addiction for a short time or a long period of time, you have no recovery capital. So we have to build that up So, like you said, at 3 years into my recovery, I had the perfect storm brewing. But by that time, I had built up recovery capital through recovery connections, through recovery resources, and I was able to stay strong through the storm. It didn't even cross my mind. I didn't even want to use. I didn't even want to drink. My life is too good today. I've come too far to go back. So the recovery connections, that's where it's at. People need to know where the resources are. They need to be plugged in, and they need to be building up a new way of life. One of the things that William White talks about too is that in our culture, when you look at the history of recovery, they used to have these 24-hour cures, these 100% cures that would come to be shipped to your home in a box or in a bottle, and they guaranteed 100% cures. And he says, how long do you think it was before 99 out of 100 people knew someone for whom recovery did not work for, or for whom treatment did not work for? We look at social media, and we just look around today at the news feeds, at social media. You see all of these, prominent people and famous people, their life falls apart, and they're drinking again, or they're using again, or they were caught with heroin. Yeah. But yet literally the second their life stabilizes and they get into recovery, that story is not told.
Yeah.
We don't hear about that.
Yeah.
So our culture, we've come to believe that once you're addicted, that's all. But there's a whole recovery community underneath, and the recovery movement is coming, and it's coming strong, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see that. The heroin epidemic has kind of sparked that movement.
Yeah.
It's sad that 175 people are dying, but I'm excited when I hear stories like what you guys are doing with the recovery radio, with the recovery connection, with different recovery communities, with recovery resources. We got to get the word out there. So I'm very excited about what you guys are doing.
Oh, thank you so much. And I completely agree with everything that you're saying, and I just think in order to overcome this beast of addiction, it's going to take a whole army. It's going to take a whole community. It's not just going to be one treatment provider or one counselor. It has to be this movement like what you're saying, and I love just kind of picturing it like that. It's like, yes, we have a rise in addiction, but we have a rise in this recovery community and the people that want to help and the people that want to help the people who are struggling. So I really just love that.
And that's one thing I've witnessed since, and I've got to be fortunate. I say fortunate, but look back when my son was using. We were disconnected from him, and so I'm appreciating everything, family members and what people in the community. But one thing that I am never totally amazed about is how connected this community is, and how we've got some lessons to learn from the community. They call each other brother, sister, and it just, I always tell about the float. You pulled all the people together from the community here in Valpo, and you got you got first place in new float category.
We did.
That was awesome. That was awesome. Oh, you know what? We got Josh calling in here, so hold on just a second. Okay, Josh, you there? Oh.
Not yet.
Here we go. Josh, you with us?
Yes, sir.
I'm amazed.
Hi, Josh.
Okay, I'm going to go home now. You guys could do this. And Amy, are you there?
I'm still here.
Wow. Okay. Great. Yeah, I'm just going to pack it up and go home. I'm impressed myself way too much. Well, with that, we're at the half-hour mark. So, Josh, if you could just bear with us, we do have to take a little bit of a break here. So you'll hear some music, and we'll be back with you in about a minute.
Cool.
Cool. That's my word. Welcome back. And we have on the phone with us now, joining us is Joshua T. Berglan. Did I get that name correct?
Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. No one gets my name right.
And believe me, if anyone can screw up a name, it's me. So, well, welcome to our show, Josh. And we've got actually you and Amy, and now I'm just going to go home because I feel like I've done my work for today is just getting this to work. So, as I was telling you guys when I was amazed I was able to conference you guys in when we talked on the phone a couple of days ago. So we just got done talking to Amy about her past, and probably before we go on too much further, Josh, if you want to share with us who you are and the show that you currently host.
Yeah, my name is Joshua T. Berglan, and I'm the CEO of a company called Live Mono Worldwide, which is a brand development, influence, and representation agency. My passion, however, has always been centered around empowering other people, fighting for those who cannot fight for themselves, or helping give people a voice that may think they don't have a voice, or they don't have a voice that needs to be heard. My goal is to prove them wrong and to give everybody a platform to be heard. And as far as my professional life, it's all about helping make people's dreams come true. I mean, whether they have a product that they envision being on television or in movies, or having global distribution, or being on QVC or HSN, or even if it's just making the right connection for somebody that's able to, that does lead to them making their dreams come true. That is something I really, really enjoy. But my lifetime dream as a child was to be a radio host. I grew up watching Larry King and Oprah and listening to Opie and Anthony and Howard Stern and Don Imus and people like that. And I always wanted to do radio, and I didn't know it was possible. I had no clue I would ever be doing it. But about 2 months ago, I started intentionally doing this show called Morning Gratitude. That was on Facebook, but I started treating it like it was a real show, and I've been very, very blessed to be picked up by iHeartRadio, and just the show's really, really grown. But I interview people from all walks of life and help share their stories. It's a lot of fun, and that's actually what I just got done doing. I had 2 interviews this morning, and that's why I'm late coming on the show.
That's perfectly fine. You just brought up something. You say you're good at helping people get to their dream.
Yeah, yes, sir. Absolutely.
Do you know who Bill Curtis is?
It sounds very familiar.
On NPR, well, he used to be a anchorman on TV, CBS, I believe. And so he now is kind of like a co-host of this NPR show called Wait, Wait. While he's getting of the age where he's going to retire pretty soon, I want his job. Can you make that happen?
I can do my
He's not a genie in a bottle, Bill.
Shouldn't have said
you don't
that.
just make wishes.
Okay, I'm going to go home now. You guys could do that. My dream has been crushed. Oh, so I'm just kidding.
No. Listen, I was going to say that every time someone says that to me, it's funny. Then I end up running into somebody that knows them, or I end up meeting them in person. So weird things happen to me like that, but I really, really love it because I like being the one to make those connections.
Yep.
Well, before you just put down on a note paper somewhere on your desk, Bill Moran wants to take Bill Curtis's place when he retires, and just put that off to the side. I'll talk to you about that later. So anyway, getting back to the topic, I'm sorry, I just had to interject when you said you make people's dreams come true. So, all right.
Bill's trying to get whatever he can.
I like to do it. I like to do that.
Yeah.
With everything that Josh just said, what really jumped out to me, you just echoed something that I had said before you came on, and you said helping people who can't help themselves. So my motto, I just left a training, and I just shared with Bill and Megan, is that my life's motto is we have to advocate for those who cannot advocate for themselves. And you nailed it. We have to be the voice for the voiceless. If not, who will?
Absolutely.
We have to do for others. We have to be, in the Christian sector, they say we have to be the hands and feet of Jesus. But we have to do for people what we would want done for us, there's something in my life that I don't have the power to do. And if I ever expect that I want someone to come into my life and pour into my life in the way that I can't, I need to be doing that for someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. Josh, I really would love to hear, I mean, you kind of explained it in a broad sense, but more specifically, what does that look like? I don't know if you can give examples or just kind of explain more specifically, what does it look like?
Helping people, like giving people
yeah.
Well, my background, before I gave my life to Christ almost 3 years ago, I worked with complex disabilities from the age of 16 to, 36.
Wow.
For 20 years, fought on behalf of people with complex disabilities. Everything from fighting insurance companies to fighting doctors to help people get access to the medical equipment that they needed. When I got out of that industry and got into the skincare and products and brand development, I kind of lost that and I missed it because it became about sales.
Sure.
When I learned about some of the intricacies of skincare and kind of what of a fraud business it really is, I decided that I was going to quit and I was going to brand myself as a brand, like a beauty broker of sorts, that basically the person that you could come to that was going to give you the truth, the pros and cons of each product. Well, that quickly evolved into just being a service.
Sure.
I have always taken great pride in putting people together. So strategic partnerships are a specialty of mine, but I like the little guy. I like the person that has a product that they invented, that they really have no chance of getting it to market without having a huge budget or a huge marketing budget. I typically have been able to formulate ways to work around that, to be able to help other people get to that next level professionally. Now with my show, I have a really great network of people. So everyone that's ever came on my show and helping elevate their message, they always seem to meet the right person that's able to help them get what they need. One of the ladies that I just love to death, she's a cannabis activist from back in the 60s that almost died twice from broken heart syndrome. No medication on the planet works for her other than cannabis. Well, she came on my show about when it first started, when I was just doing it on my phone. She came on my show and she got noticed by TV executives. She's now going to get $1 million payday to do a show based on her foundation and the work that she's doing.
Wow.
She's going to be set up for life now because of something that she came on my show.
Wow.
But on top of that, besides that, there's things that happen. Look, I look to serve before I do anything else. Whether I'm at an event, whether I'm walking down the street of Little Italy, San Diego, no matter what I'm doing, if I feel that calling, if I feel the Spirit, I have to assume it's the Holy Spirit, that's saying, go talk to that person, smile at that person, help that person, offer that person to bring them into the 7-Eleven and buy them food. Like that happened this morning. I see the same homeless woman every day and she always asks for change and I never have change. So you know what? Hey, would you like some food instead? And I took her in and let her buy whatever she wanted, food, and left. And I'm not saying that to build me up. I'm just saying that I just look to serve in all aspects of my life. When I got out of jail for the 6th time, I made a decision when I actually thought I was going to be in jail for 5 years. I made a decision when I gave my life to Christ that my life was no longer my own, and even behind bars, I was going to serve the Lord and do what He called me to do. Period. Now, somehow I got out of jail with no charges. I don't know how that happened, but it happened. So I've been on a mission for the last 2.5 years since I got out that I'm going to serve and serve and serve and serve and serve and serve and sacrificially give as much as I can. And that's the life I was going to live. I was going to do exactly what I was called to do. So that's relentless giving. That is helping wherever I can and using my gifts for the benefit of other people, not myself.
That's amazing. And I think that's exactly what we've been talking about is people who can just give their life, give their time and energy to help people, connecting them to the resources that you're talking about, connecting them with other people and with the greater community. I mean, that is exactly what we need, and that's exactly what people in recovery need. So I think that's great.
Yeah, that's kind of segues right into what we were going to talk about here. And Josh and Amy, you've I talked to you about this, our concept about putting a multifaceted show together, and what we thought we'd do is just kind of like brainstorm on the air.
Yeah, that would be great.
And so, listeners, if you have any ideas yourself, where the Recovery Connection has a Facebook page, right?
We do, yeah.
So that they can leave comments on there as well.
Message us or leave a comment. That would be great.
And so, if you have an idea yourself, please let us know. But we've talked about this multifaceted program that is kind of an extension of Recovery Connection.
It is.
It is to support people, provide a community for them, and show them some love, really, what it amounts to. And so we talked about resources because, we've been pretty well directed by the higher powers. We got to have a show about resources for recovery, right, Megan?
Yeah, absolutely.
The boss lady of us. So that she told us that we've got to do that.
Yeah.
So that's one segment. Then, again, that would be helpful, I think, for family members and people going through recovery and self. But then again, is it something, we're talking about something as kind of like a blend of entertainment, but a community connection. And so we start talking about it like a music show, and where people come on and share their music and so on. And then show that people talk about their life story, which Tony will be sharing with us at a later date. And then a call-in show where people call in, and we'll have hosts here ready to man the phones. And we're technically not ready to do that yet, but you never know. Someone may come forward and say, "Well, we're going to make that happen." So, so that is a very big possibility, and I think the radio station would benefit from that if we're able to have a call-in show where people can come in, call in, and share their stories, and people will be here to talk to them and answer their questions and so on. So those are kind of like the elements that we started out with, but I thought we'd do is just talk, and maybe there's something else out there. So what do you think of those ideas so far, Amy and Josh?
I love it.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we put in there somewhere Bill taking Bill Curtis's place? No.
He's never going to forget that.
I'll be the Bill Curtis of Recovery Radio.
And don't forget the middleman.
I know. I'll bring you guys along with me. Believe me. So, but right now I'll be the Bill Curtis of Recovery Radio. Is that okay with everyone?
I'm good with that.
Pretty funny.
Sure.
Okay. Cool. So I'll do the limericks on Recovery Radio. So, all right. So
I love the Recovery Radio idea, Bill, and it goes back to what I was sharing earlier about recovery capital and about recovery-oriented systems of care and about peer advocacy and about mutual aid. All of these concepts. The fact that you're including people from the recovery world because they do have voice, right?
Yeah.
So you're building them back into society and into the mix. And how can we as a culture tell people that this is what recovery looks like when we don't even know how the person that's in addiction sees recovery?
Absolutely.
How can you tell me how to get out of an addiction when you don't even know how I see the problem?
So this could be like a light at the end of the tunnel for them to give them hope to, this is a community that, if I stay clean or whatever, that I can be a part of.
Yeah.
So
it really is I want to hear your perspective. I want to know what you've been through so that I can help you, or not even I can help you, but so that we can, work together to, absolutely. I love hearing people's stories. I think that, we see addiction as kind of a far-off problem. It's not something that's personal, especially if you've never been through it yourself, or if you don't know anyone who struggles with addiction. It's kind of a thing over there that you just look at and say, oh, that's sad. But when you begin to hear people's stories, when you hear the individual who's been through 20 years of alcoholism or the person that's lost family members to addiction, it becomes so real, and it becomes something that, okay, yeah, let's do something about this. Let's bring you in. Let's connect you to people. Let's work together to kind of, find the resources. I don't know, but yeah, I think that it's so important to be able to hear people's stories and hear their journeys and experiences.
Until it becomes personalized, I think that we kind of just turn a blind eye to it. And I think that, Amy, you brought up a real life experience that you had to deal with. Sorry for your tragedy and your loss, but until it was personalized to you, you weren't really motivated to really take an aggressive standpoint in the whole recovery process. And I think addicts, I can speak for myself, addicts and alcoholics, we're really hard to deal with. Our perceptions of things, how we look at things, what we believe recovery is about, how do I really even know? Because I really don't even know. What's my attitude about recovery? So where do I start? And I'm so confused. People are so confused. They don't even know, and they're afraid to even say that, because now when you start talking, you don't even make, sometimes we don't even make sense. I'll speak for me. I don't even make sense. And I hear this. I've heard this, not recently, but in the past. I don't even make sense. I don't make sense to myself because I really don't understand, because our brain, we talked about the commercials, this is your brain on drugs. There's a lot of truth to that. Except they left a part off. Put that egg in the pan, then scramble it up. Now that's your brain. So where do we go from there? So now we've put all this together. We've got a lot of this talking part done. So how do we connect these obstacles that we need to overcome from the addiction, the addict side, and to connect to these resources? I think that's where we're coming from.
Yeah, and coming from the outside, I've got to say, just logically, that makes sense. Putting people together that understand understand what you've been through, and they're there to help you and say, yeah, I've been there, done that. But there's always a better place at the end. There's a lot of validity to that, and a lot of connectivity between people.
Absolutely.
And that's I got to draw back again. Megan's probably tired of me bringing this up, but I just saw that float. And how many guys, girls did you have working on that float?
Working on the float, we probably had a total of 30 to 35 people that helped us build the float.
And then just were part of the parade, the popcorn
parade?
Yeah,
even more than that, probably around 40 to 50 people who were walking with us alongside this float. The theme was Road to Recovery, and you had people walking, holding signs saying, there is hope. We do recover, things like that, walking in solidarity along with this float. And I think it really did kind of send a message to our community that, we are in this together, and we connect and we work hard, and we're not lost causes.
Right. And what I felt so good about that day is the stigma that was being lifted. People actually cheering you guys as you're going past, and and that's something I think we've lost in our community at large. And to bring that back, that feeling, I think is so important, whatever we do and whatever route we take. But truly, it kind of gave me goosebumps to see you guys go through. And our float wasn't too bad.